Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Amit Harari, and coming up in today's newscast. Egyptian policemen shot and murdered 3 Israeli soldiers on the Egyptian border. Meantime, New York City Israel parade celebrations drawing big crowds and protests. And later, Israel's U20 team is doing it once again, advancing to the Mundialitos semifinals. Israel and Egypt have launched a joint investigation into yesterday's shooting on the border that left 3 Israeli soldiers shot dead by an Egyptian policeman who infiltrated the border. The 3 Israeli soldiers were today laid to rest. More from ILTV's Steve Leibovich.
Sergeant Leah Ben Nun, 19, from Rishon, and Staff Sergeant Ori Iluz, 20, from Tzfat, were killed in their guard post. Sergeant Ohad Dahan, 20, was killed later in an exchange of fire with the gunman. IDF Bardalis Battalion soldiers Ben Nun and Iluz were apparently caught unaware of the Egyptian infiltration and were found dead in their guard post without having returned fire. After discovering the bodies, 3 soldiers tracked and confronted the Egyptian gunman. In the exchange, the Egyptian was killed, and so was Sergeant Dahan. Another soldier was wounded in the exchange.
האירוע מתחיל בהגעה של מ"מ לנקודה באו מזהה 2 לוחמים, הלוחם והלוחמת ללא רוח חיים. ההתייחסות מאותו רגע ההתייחסות היא התייחסות לאירוע טרור.
The incidents occurred between Mount Sagi and Mount Harif in the Negev desert. The Egyptian army issued a confusing statement saying that an officer in charge of border security chased after subjects involved in alleged drug smuggling. The statement added Egypt's condolences to the families of the victims. A joint Israeli-Egyptian team will investigate.
שאנחנו בתחקיר משותף, והתחקיר יהיה תחקיר נוקב, תחקיר ברור, ולא נשאיר פה אף שאלה לא פתורה.
Defense Minister Gallant tweeted, "I spoke this evening with my Egyptian counterpart, Minister Mohammed Zaki. I emphasized the importance of our cooperation in the investigation of the severe attack in which 3 IDF troops were killed. We agreed to work together to prevent terrorism along our border and to further strengthen defensive ties between our countries." This was one of the most serious border incidents since the signing of the 1979 peace treaty between the 2 countries. In the past decade, Israel built a largely successful barrier along the border aimed at keeping out terrorists, migrants, and drug smugglers trying to enter from the Egyptian Sinai.
The Security Cabinet with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant convened today to discuss a potential multi-front conflict, including Iran and Hezbollah. This amid concerns over Tehran's progress toward nuclear weapon capabilities. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant held a security assessment before the Security Cabinet meeting set up amid escalated tensions over Iran's nuclear program and Israeli warnings that a broad conflict could break out over the issue. Tehran has been ramping up nuclear development since 2018 when the U.S. unilaterally withdrew from a World Powers Pact, capping enrichment in exchange for sanctions relief. Recent reports have indicated steps to possibly renew the diplomatic initiative, sparking Israeli concerns that a new deal could erase support for potential military action. Prime Minister Netanyahu had a message.
אני שומע את כל הפרסומים בעניין איראן, אז יש לי מסר חד וברור, גם לאיראן וגם לקהילה הבינלאומית. ישראל תעשה כל מה שהיא צריכה לעשות כדי למנוע מאיראן נשק גרעיני.
Gallant said recent developments regarding the Iranian nuclear issue, the dangers facing the state of Israel are intensifying, and we may be required to fulfill our duty in order to protect the integrity of Israel and especially the future of the Jewish people, Gallant said. Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer and National Security Advisor Tzachi Hanegbi discussed the Iranian threat in meetings in Washington with National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. Sullivan said talks were focused on preventing Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon and ways to counter threats from Iran and its proxies. And joining us now with more on all the latest security updates is expert on Palestinian affairs and a senior research fellow at the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, Yoni Ben Menachem. Yoni, let's start with the terrible terrorist incident on the Egyptian border, a quiet border for a number of years. Was it a random incident or a sign that security needs boosting on that border as well?
And there's no doubt that security needs boosting on this border. There are daily incidents of smuggling drugs along the border, accompanied by shooting from the smugglers and from the Egyptian army. And this is a very dangerous area, which extend to more than 200 kilometers. And definitely what happened yesterday proves that there should be new security measure along the border with Egypt.
What more can you tell us about the incident itself? I mean, technicality, the two were in the guarding, booth. The third one was killed later on. What more can you tell us? More details about the incident?
There were a series of malfunctions by the IDF. There were not enough attention to the two soldiers that were in the guarding post. And it took too long to find out that they are dead. It took too long to find the terrorist which was hiding inside the Israeli territory. And there was a series of malfunctions that need to be investigated, and new arrangements, security arrangements should be taken. Now everything is under investigation on the Israeli side by the IDF concerning what the IDF soldiers did, and also there's a joint investigation of the Israeli army and the Egyptian army together to try and find ways to prevent such incidents in the future.
Yoni, what you said brings me to my next question. How in the world was this Egyptian gunman on Israeli territory for a few good hours? Without being detected, killing 3 trained IDF soldiers, how is that even possible?
This is possible because he infiltrated in a way that the army did not discover the infiltration, and then he managed to get close to the 2 soldiers that were in the guarding post, and he surprised them. And then after he killed them, he was hiding in the terrain, the very complicated terrain in that area, and between the rocks he was hiding, waiting for the other soldiers to come and look for him. And when they came, he again surprised the soldiers, and he shot first and managed to kill another soldier and injured also another soldier. So this is all was done by surprise. The army should make serious investigation for these failures of the soldiers and draw the necessary conclusions.
Serious investigation indeed. How would you describe the current relationship between Israel and Egypt? Peaceful certainly, but can we count on their full cooperation in the investigation of this tragedy? As you said, they're going to cooperate with the IDF.
Yes, I think these are very important strategic relationship between Israel and Egypt, and the Egyptians don't want to violate the good relations with Israel, with the Israeli army. They will also launch a serious investigation, I'm sure. But, there are extreme elements among the Egyptian army and the soldiers and police. The border police of Egypt along the border with Israel, you can never control 100% Islamic extremists to serve in the Egyptian army or the Egyptian police. I'm sure now that the Egyptians will be very careful in the future who to post near the Israeli border, and they will try to prevent extreme elements to serve on the border with Israel.
Yes, Yoni, now turning to regional developments, the Security Cabinet meeting today to consider the possibility of a military confrontation with Iran and Hezbollah simultaneously. Just being prepared, or is it a real danger of a major escalation in our northern border?
This is a real danger because the Iranians and also Hezbollah and Hamas and Islamic Jihad, they repeat saying that they have a new strategy which is called United Fronts against Israel. And the deputy of Hassan Nasrallah said a few days ago that the next war will be inside Israeli territory and not in South Lebanon. So these threats should be taken very seriously. And the cabinet is meeting tonight to see what can be done about these threats by the Hezbollah and Hamas.
And answers, I mean, what they talk about in really the cabinet, will we know them soon or not at all?
We will know, of course, some of the things because, as you know, there are leaks from the defense cabinet. Always there are leaks. So we'll know some of the details, but not all of them. But I think the fact that the cabinet is discussing this issue, it's a start, it's a beginning to take seriously the threats of Iran and Hezbollah. And Israel should adopt a new deterrence strategy because of these threats.
Yoni Ben Menachem, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.